Synopsis of the Books of the Bible. Job. By JND Darby. All Scripture is given by inspiration of God, and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of God may be perfect, thoroughly furnished unto all good works. 2 Timothy 3 verses 16 and 17. Synopsis of the Books of the Bible. By John Nelson Darby. Job 38-42. Jehovah himself speaks, Job made to know himself. Jehovah then speaks, and addressing Job carries on the subject. He makes Job sensible of his nothingness. Job confesses himself to be vile and declares that he will be silent before God. The Lord resumes the discourse, and Job acknowledges that he has darkened counsel by speaking of that which he understood not. But now, still more submissively, he declares openly his real condition. Formerly he had heard of God by the hearing of the ear, now his eye had seen him, wherefore he abhors himself and repents in dust and ashes. This is the effect of having seen God, and of finding himself in his presence. The work of God was accomplished, the work of his perfect goodness, which would not leave Job without causing him to know himself, without bringing him into God's own presence. The object of discipline was attained, and Job is surrounded with more blessings than before. The lessons of the book of Job. We learn two things here: first, that man cannot stand in the presence of God, and secondly, the ways of God for the instruction of the inner man. It is also a picture of God's dealings with the Jews on the earth. The place of Satan, God's work. The book of Job plainly sets before us also the teaching of the Spirit, as to the place which Satan occupies in the dealings of God and his government, with respect to man on the earth. We may also remark the perfect and faithful care of God, from whom, whatever may have been the malice of Satan, all this proceeded because he saw that Job needed it. We observe that it is God who sets the case of Job before Satan, and that the latter disappears from the scene, because here it is a question of his doings on the earth, and not of his inward temptations. Further, if God had stopped short in the outward afflictions, Job would have had fresh cause for self-complacency. Man might have judged that those afflictions were ample. But the evil of Job's heart consisted in his resting on the fruits of grace in himself, and this would have only increased the good opinion he had already entertained of himself. Kind in prosperity, he would have been also patient in adversity. God, therefore, carries on his work, that Job may know himself. The depths of Job's heart displayed. Either the sympathy of his friends, for we can bear alone, and from God in his presence, that which we cannot bear when we have the opportunity of making our complaint before man, or the pride which is not roused while we are alone but which is wounded when others witness our misery, or perhaps the two together, upset the mind of Job, and he curses the day of his birth. The depths of his heart are displayed. It was this that he needed. Job, humbled, can be blessed. We have thus man standing between Satan, the accuser, and God, the question being not God's revelation of everlasting righteousness, but his ways with the soul of man in this world. The godly man comes into trouble. This has to be accounted for, the friends insisting that this world is an adequate expression of God's righteous government, and that consequently, as Job had made great profession of piety, he was a hypocrite. This he stoutly denies, but his will unbroken rises up against God. God has chosen to do it, and he cannot help it. Only he is sure if he could find him, he would put words in his mouth. He spoke well of him though in rebellion and thinking of his goodness as his own. Still, he affirms that though there was a government, this world did not show it as his friends said, but he is not broken down before God. Elohi comes in, the interpreter, one among 1,000, and practically how rare they are, and he shows God's discipline with man and with the righteous and rebukes both sides with intelligence. Then God comes in and puts Job in his place by the revelation of himself, but owns Job's right feeling as to him, and puts the friends in their true place, and Job is to intercede for them. Job, humbled, can be fully blessed. This knowledge of self in God's sight is of all importance. We are never humble nor distrustful of self till then,